Hey everyone, welcome to the Note Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Deppen, and today I'm joined by Nathan Turner. So Nathan,
Well,
how's it
hello.
going?
Very good. Very good.
Good. I think you're known as the Canadian
The
note
Canadian
guy.
note
So
guy. Yeah. Yeah.
so maybe give us like some background on you and kind of what you do in
Sure.
notes.
So, Canadian note guy because I live in Canada. Everything I do is in the US, but I live in Canada. So, I live just outside of Calgary, Alberta. We're just on the west side, a little bit closer to the Rocky Mountains. And it's just a gorgeous place to live. We love it. We've been here about a year and a half. Before that, we were in Montreal. So, I've
Nice. I mean,
been,
I've never been to
yeah.
Calgary, but I'm in Denver.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I sense like I had a friend in business school who was from Calgary, and it sounds like they're a little bit similar in
Yeah.
that they like butt up to the
Yeah.
mountains on the west side. So
Yeah, like my ski hill, the one that I go to, it's the one that they used for the Calgary Olympics back in
hmm
1988. And it's about 45 minutes from me. So it's close. It takes me no time at all to get to the mountains. And yeah, it's great. We love to go and visit and
Is
hang
there
out.
traffic on the weekends or is it like, because where I am, it's about like, depending on where you go,
Yeah.
hour and a half, 2 hours.
Okay.
But then if it's like the weekend, you better go early because with ski traffic, that can get way longer.
Yeah. Yeah. It's busy. It doesn't usually slow down, but it's busy. Like it's solid, 2 lanes each way, and it's pretty solid. It's in the summertime. You'll probably slow down some. We get a lot of tourists, a lot of people from all over that go and want to go see the Rockies, which I totally understand. But it
Yeah. Yeah. I
doesn't
need to
get
see the
busy.
Canadian Rockies. I haven't seen that yet.
They're very similar from the airplane. I haven't been to the Denver Rockies, but I've seen them from the air. They look pretty close.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
So we just caught up recently at the Papersource
Yeah, yeah. Tom
seminar.
Henderson's event, and man, that's so good. It's really interesting to have somebody that's been doing this long, like a really long time, teach some of the tips and tricks that he's learned over the years, and that was really helpful for me. And so that's I'm really glad we got to do that. That was good.
Yeah, that was the first time I got to hear him talk, and I knew that was, he was potentially hanging it up
Yeah,
after that, so I wanted to get there and go see him. But I noticed he asked you a lot of questions. Like it was obvious, like you kind of knew you had a lot of respect for your
yeah.
outlook on
We
notes.
met years ago at Papersource in Vegas, and yeah, I just kind of became friends and I visited him in Dallas. Oh gosh, 10 or so years ago. It was awesome. It was me and my old business partner, and we went out, took him out for catfish, and just hung out and just kind of chatted for a long time, asked him questions and how do you do this? What do you think about that kind of thing? And yeah, it's been really great. He's been a real help for me as I've kind of come up through the ranks, kind of thing.
It wasn't with him, but I had a similar meeting with one of the like 80 something note guys one time. Yeah, and spent the whole day
Yeah, and it's
talking
awesome.
about all
I
kinds
love
of
just getting
things.
their perspective, and having gone through many more cycles than I have, then they can say, so this is what I've seen and this has been my experience, and that's gold. Like that is so useful to have that kind of perspective.
Yeah, those guys that have like 40 plus years of experience, it's kind of
Yeah,
nuts. So,
yeah.
but you've been at it for a while. So like when did you start notes?
I was kind of introduced to it in 2008, where it was me and my old business partner Corey. We kind of inherited, I guess, for lack of a better term, but we were given this portfolio of properties, REO properties that were purchased just before the crash in 2007. They had thought they were going to just turn this package around and sell it back out to a different investor group. Of course, the sale fell through. By the fall of 2008, they're like, oh crap, now what do we do with all this stuff?
Oh, so the crash hit
Yeah.
in between when they got it and we're gonna do the flip around.
Yeah. So they knew they're in trouble. And so they contacted Corey, and then he contacted me and said, hey, are you interested in working on this? And I'm like, okay, what is it? So it was a bunch of properties, no operating budget, and really rundown, ugly, crappy properties. And it's like, okay, make as much money as you can with these. Okay, go. That
Yeah.
was kind
So
of
so what
it.
did you end up doing? Did you do like the harbor portfolio thing and
Very
Do
similar.
land
Yeah.
contracts or, you
Yeah.
know?
Hadn't heard of them yet, but very similar. So we were selling them on terms. So land contracts in Ohio. And that's kind of what we landed on. So we didn't have the budget to fix anything. So we just kind of said, well, here's buy property for less than rent was our tagline. So
Hmm.
if market rent was 500, buy this house for $400 a month, and you can fix it up, do whatever you're going to do to it for cheaper than you would be renting, and now you're becoming an owner. And so that was kind of the premise, and we got going with that, and that was my intro to notes.
Nice. What was it like operating back then? I'm kind of jealous because I didn't start until like 9 years after that. Like,
It,
whether it was even easy to find, like,
yeah,
vendors and
yeah,
stuff.
it was Wild West, like totally. There were so many non-performing notes, and that's kind of what it turned into. And eventually, I started buying non-performers again with the same strategy where I wanted to acquire the property and sell it on terms. Um, and that's how we got started. And then I went to Noteworthy was my first note conference, 2009, and the idea being at that time, I was like, okay, so we've created these contracts. I didn't even know they were called notes. So we've got
Hmm.
these contracts. Surely there's got to be a way to cash out of them. You can sell a turnkey rental property, and that's basically what this is, just a different kind of contract. So that's what I started looking for, and I stumbled into notes just online, and went to
Yeah.
Noteworthy, and it was like, oh wow, yeah, this is huge. People do this, and like this is a thing, and learned how to actually do it correctly. So I was writing paper much better. Instead of like a 2-page contract, now it turned into like a 15-page contract, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
How did you learn to do it back then?
um, so I took classes from a few different people and just kind of took bits and pieces and fitted into what I was doing, what I wanted to be doing. So we talked to, I did Donna Bauer's course, Bob Leonetti, Eddie Speed, and just took everybody's course to figure out what pieces fit with what I was doing and what I was trying to accomplish. And
Hmm.
that was kind of my intro. So I took really, quite literally, took pieces from each one of them and just figured out how to put it together. And like Donna had her sample contract, and Bob had his a different kind of contract and some calculator training, and Eddie with his info. And so just all of it kind of came together, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's how we can do that.
Nice. Yeah. I think like everybody's models evolve over time. Like, I know, like,
Yeah.
I did some training early on, but then I kind of morphed things
Yeah.
over time, and I'm always like changing and tweaking
Yeah,
the
for
way that
sure.
I
I
do
mean,
stuff.
we went from creating notes and then started buying non-performing in 2010. Figured out that I didn't actually want the property if I could help it. So
Hmm.
just started getting reperformers or selling on terms so that we could have notes, and then selling those. And then just as time went on, I'm like, man, that's a lot of work, all this different stuff. And so the latest kind of version of what we're doing now is just I buy performing notes. So I put together a fund, raising capital for that, and then with that cash, we go out and buy performing notes, and then they're just way easier to deal with. Not the same kind of margins that you see with non-performers, but far more predictable.
Yeah, I've done something kind of similar the last couple of years. Like, I like the non-performers, but it seemed like there were a few years there where I just wasn't seeing a lot of them, and the pricing
Yeah,
had gone up. And so like
yeah,
the spread between performing and non-performing were tight. I'm like, well, I may as well just do performing, and
yeah,
why mess with the work and risk and all that.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And especially in a fund model, so much easier to deal with performers than non-performers. Like I said,
Hmm.
just far more predictable.
Yeah. So what are you seeing now as we're into like, well, into 2024, and what's
For
kind of the the play for people like this year and
I think
beyond?
performing is the way to go, and specifically seller finance notes. They're just going to be your best returns, and the easiest way to get deals done. I've seen some bank paper that's come out, but it's written at like 3 or 4 or 5%. So to take my offer in order to get to my target yield, it's such a low offer. It's just hard to get the deal done. So the seller finance stuff that's being written at 9, 10, 11%, that's much easier. And my discount is much smaller, and it makes way more sense for everybody.
Right. Because basically, if you're discounting the 3% rate to whatever it is, it's going to be such a haircut. They're probably not even gonna.
Yeah. And, you've heard it said, like, go ahead and do a low ball offer. What are they going to do? Say no. Well, yeah, but this is a small enough business that they're like, oh, there goes that Nathan guy. Oh, his offers are terrible.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So
I
it does
kind of feel
matter.
that way too, because at the seminar, I noticed like Tom seemed to propose just make the offer. Like he seemed to be okay with like making offers that, because maybe they'll say yes.
Yeah.
I've
And
been kind of the mind of
sure.
like, if it's something I know they're not going to accept or it just feels super low, I often don't make it because I don't want to annoy them.
Yeah.
Because I know like sometimes like when people have given me low ball offers, I get annoyed.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Yeah. And like, how motivated I to go back to that person when I know their offers are terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's definitely a small world though,
Yeah. Yeah.
overall. So now I believe you took over the DME conference
Yeah,
at some point.
Diversified
So we
Mortgage
talk about that.
Expo. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been so fun. So, like we say, it's all about relationships. So, my first conference, 2009, it wasn't until 2015 I started actually speaking at conferences. And then maybe a little bit earlier than that, but on my own, 2015, started speaking at conferences, and it became so clear to me how important it is to make a name for yourself in the business. And it's a small enough community, it's important to have people know who you are. And so that became a big deal. And then I was approached, it was Liz and Kimberly that had DME, and for different reasons, they're just like, we're just done with it. It's not something we want to continue.
Hmm.
And so offered it to me, and I said, yeah, absolutely, because again, it's all about connections. And I figured if going to a conference and speaking helps get me connections, then how great would it be to own one and to be the person that's putting it on. And so that was my main motivation, is just for connections, for networking. And it's been great. And man, what a fun conference. We have such a good time there, and really great content. And that's what we strive for, just to get people the best education and the best experience that we can.
Yeah, I haven't made that one yet, but I'm planning to this year.
You
So
got to make it. It's really good. So I mean, just we put our own spin. My wife and I took it over, and so we put our own spin. So, fun fact, the sport of axe throwing, where you
yeah.
throw axes at targets. My brother-in-law, my wife's younger brother, started the sport. He's the
Oh,
one.
really?
Yeah, he
That's
invented it. And so that was, so because of that, really, and we've done it a number of times with him, and it's so fun. And it's just, you stick an axe in there and it sticks in the wood, and you're like, oh, that's awesome, let's do it again. And it's just a really fun time. So when we were looking for locations of where we wanted to go, we picked Nashville, partially because my brother-in-law had one of his locations in Nashville. And so,
Mm.
oh, for sure, then no question. So the
So
night
how
before,
did he come up with that? Like, what was the inspiration? Was there drinking involved, or like what
there
was?
was drinking involved. Yeah. Yeah. He was
Yeah.
at a
So-
party, like at a weekend party, and there were, I just goofing around, and there was a hatchet there, and he threw it at a tree, and it stuck in the tree. He's like, oh, that's awesome. And then just did it over. And he got home, and he's like, hey dude, check this out. And he's like, sure, sure. And he's like, no, no, no. So he like made a little makeshift target and put it up in his backyard, up on the fence. And he showed his friend how to do it, and they're sticking axes, and they're like, oh, this is awesome. And he's just kind of evolved from there. He's like, you think people would pay to do this? And it kind of just ballooned from there. And now it's become international. Actually, it's all over the world where people are
Yeah, I was gonna say I
doing
haven't
this.
tried it yet, but there's a bunch of them around the
Yeah.
Denver. I mean, they're kind of all over the place. So
Yeah. And again, smart move, and this is not note related, but it's business related. One smart move, I like, we're literally Sunday dinner, we're talking about expansion and growing this thing that he's kind of created. And so one of the first questions is, do you franchise this? And eventually, collectively, we're just like, it's a lot of work to do the franchise model. And then you got to police everybody. And just the
Mm-hmm.
compliance of it is really difficult. So he decided against that. What he did instead is formed, they call it the International Axe Throwing Federation. So the IATF. And then anybody who wants to be part of the federation has to have the same scoring rules and, the same kind of concept. And then now they have tournaments. So literally international tournaments. People come from England and Australia and they'll go and pick one club somewhere in North America and they'll have this huge tournament, prize money, the whole works. Like it's quite a thing. It's pretty cool. It's on ESPN. It's like it's
Yeah,
not.
it's making me think of the dodgeball movie.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
they could
Yeah,
have, and you get Chuck Norris to be a judge. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But it's just really ballooned, so it's really cool. It's fun to see that. But anyway,
Nice.
all
Nice.
that to say, we do that the night before the conference. We do an axe throwing tournament, so that by the end of the night, we've got the DME axe throwing champion for that year. This last year was Dan Turner, so somebody's got to dethrone him.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Yeah. I mean, I should be able to make it a town. Never done axe throwing though, so I don't know that
It's a lot of fun. Nobody's really good at it, so
I'm
it's
gonna win that. Yeah. So what are the dates for that?
so it's May 31st, June 1st, out in Nashville.
Okay, cool. And I'll throw links in the show notes later
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
for
And like I
that.
say, we do that, so that people can have something to come to and have fun together and get to know people. And then throughout the weekend, we make a point of doing that. Like, okay, go talk to people, make sure you're talking to the vendors, people that are here supporting. Like, we don't just pick anybody to come be a vendor. It's people that really are related to the business. And most of them are people that I've used. So I can
Mhm.
say, like, listen, those guys for insurance, they're great. And we invited those guys. I don't say it out loud, but we didn't invite this other company. That's
Yeah,
who I use, and they're great. And kind of that's who we have there, and like they're there on purpose.
that's cool. Yeah, live events in general, I found to be just super valuable. There was like a
Yeah,
couple years there during COVID where I really didn't get out and about. And recently I was just going through some records of people I've been doing business with
yeah,
lately and kind of tracking down like where I originally met them, where they came from. And there was a surprising number I met at live conferences, like
yeah,
Node Expo last fall. I ended up doing stuff with a few people afterwards. So like all you need is like one contact, we find one deal, or you have like one investor, whatever.
yeah,
Um, the whole trip kind of pays for itself
yeah, absolutely. And that's
pretty
the thing, and
easily.
that's another focus. Is again, I've been to a whole bunch of conferences over the years, and so rather than there's the kind of conference you go to and it's like rah rah, yay hooray, and everyone gets pumped and you go home and then just nothing happens. Versus again, what we're trying to encourage is this is the place to make deals happen. So meet people, talk about actual deals you've got going on, or what are you looking for? What are you selling? Like, let's come together and have those kind of conversations while we're all there in person so that you can walk away from the weekend making some money. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, and have fun while
Yes,
you're doing it. And Nashville seems like a cool town. I don't
it's
really.
it's really fun. Yeah. If you're into the party scene, I'm not really, but we did go down to Broadway and it's crazy. We went into a bar where on the main floor there's a live band going, and then you go up 3 floors and you get onto the roof. There's a second band up on the roof playing whatever they're playing up there, and so it's wild, and there's just tons of people all over. It's a really fun town.
Nice, nice. So what were your big takeaways from the Papersource seminar? Or was there
Man,
anything new that came out of that for you?
yeah, I was actually just talking to somebody today about this. So Tom teaches the 10 for 12, and I just
You maybe can
that
explain what
concept
that is,
alone.
because that was new to me. I wasn't familiar with that
Yeah, I had
before I
heard him
got
talk
there.
about it before, but I honestly I don't think that I paid that close of attention. Because this time I was like, oh my goodness, that alone can be a game changer. So what that means is, let's say for the sell side. So let's say I own a bunch of notes and I'm just looking for an injection of cash. I'm collecting the payments, that's fine, but I'm looking for an injection of cash so that whatever, I can go buy another note, so I can take my family on vacation, whatever it is.
Or
Uh,
Tom's examples were like owing 10,000 to a bookie, but that's
yeah,
probably not,
yeah,
yeah.
right. And no 10 grand to a bookie.
I haven't
Probably
had
won't
that one
happen anyway.
myself, but yeah.
Yeah. But if I'm there, I'm holding on to these notes. I can then sell to you. It's basically a year-long partial, a 12-month partial. So then you're going to pay for 10 payments for the right to receive 12. So for easy numbers, if the note is paying $1,000 a month, you're going to pay me $10,000, and over the course of the year, you'll receive 12,000. So
Mhm.
that's just very basic, simple math. Your yield on that is, you as the buyer, your yield on that is 35.07, which is a really great yield. And that's alone, that's really great for the buyer side. And then on the seller side, like I say, and then you've got that cash injection, you can go do whatever you want.
And
I
it's not intuitive that the yield would be that high,
No, it's not. But when you put
right?
it in the calculator, I mean, that's a great yield. That's really great.
Yeah. Yeah. So I need to go and try one of those. I haven't
Yeah. Yeah.
had the opportunity come up yet.
Me neither, but I can see it. It's beneficial on both sides, really.
Hmm.
Where on the buy side, if I just need some cash injection for some reason, that's not a big deal to give up a year's worth. If, say I've got 10 notes and I sell 3 of these, great. Now I've got this cash injection from those 3 notes, but I'm still collecting on the other 7. Great. That's not going to hurt me in any way. But it gives me that cash that I needed for whatever it was. And then on
Yeah.
the buy side, that's a fantastic yield. You're collecting 12 payments and a 35.07 yield on that. Like, that's fantastic. That's great.
Yeah.
So that was a big one. I mean, I've got the book here, but he just went through, you could do this, or you could do this, or you could do this. And all of them were really good and actionable things, like doable deals.
Yeah. He's definitely a big creative finance guy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the thing that would just slow me down on some of that stuff, though, would be I'd have to go, since I haven't done a lot of the things that he talks about, I would have to get the paperwork side figured out. So like the first one would be pretty inefficient
Yeah.
when I did it, but
Yeah. The first one's always the hardest one, but you figure it out, and then now you can do it over and over again. So
yeah,
really worth it.
for sure. And then where do you fall on the wraps? So that's another one that I haven't talked about. I haven't actually done one, but like when I was at Note Expo, there was a lot of, it seemed like a hot topic was people buying a property, assuming like an existing 3% loan and then
Yeah.
wrapping it with like a 9 or 10% loan. And
Yeah.
like some people are against it, some people are for it. I know like Tom was for it, but with some caveats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a fan of the concept, and I think um just in today's market, I think there's a lot more opportunity for it because there's all those 3% loans out there.
Hmm.
I read something a while back that said that it was something like 80 or 85% of America refinanced when rates were 2 or 3% or whatever it was. So like
Hmm.
most people are sitting at that really low rate right now. Um, so if there are people that need to get out of their house quickly, I think there's a lot more opportunity for those subject to purchases. So I think that's great. So if you can make that work, I think there's a short window here, and go ahead and take advantage of that. Creating the wrap on top of that. And of course, there's risks involved with the subject too, but we don't get too much into that. But
Yeah. We don't need to get too technical, but yeah.
yeah, and then doing the wrap on top of that and then selling the wrap, same thing. Like, I'm actually a fan of that. However, I would want to pay off that underlying first. I
Hmm.
wouldn't want to get in a situation where there's the underlying borrower and my current borrower, and then the current borrower defaults. And then I guess I could step in and start making those payments. I don't really want to, though. And then we've got the situation where this underlying borrower, like, the bank is going to be coming after if I don't pay.
Bam.
they're going to go after the underlying borrower. I don't know them. Whoever created the wrap knows them, or whoever did the subject to knows them. So I could get really, really messy, really, really fast. And so if we can pay off that underlying first, release that borrower, that's something that I would be willing to do. I haven't yet. Just the opportunity hasn't been there, but I'm interested.
Yeah, I haven't done it either. I'm kind of in the same boat
Yeah.
where it's interesting, but I feel like the devil's in the details, and I
Yeah.
haven't spent the time to like dig into exactly how would you have to set this up, and then
Yeah.
what are all the possible scenarios, and how do you deal
Yeah.
with
But I
those?
think it's
But it sounds
doable.
like there's some people out there doing them where there's a potential for a disaster
Right.
if somebody stops paying. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And again, we've come up through the non-performers, so maybe we're a little jaded, maybe we're
Yeah, I mean,
pessimists.
I've
I don't
had
know.
because because I've bought a lot of loans that were just non-performing. I've had performing notes that I bought that went south.
Yeah.
Um, it happens,
Yeah.
and if you do
Yeah.
enough, like it's gonna happen. And for me, I don't know if that's part of my engineering thing, but like some real estate investors, like wheeler dealers, are like okay if the probability of something is small.
Yeah.
My attitude is whatever I do, I'm going to do a lot of these over the years. So like if something can happen, it eventually will. So
Yeah.
I just need to have a game plan
Yeah. Yeah. Just to
for
know,
dealing with
like,
that.
what if? Because the what if will probably happen. It's just a matter of when, not if, kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
I remember
then what?
a little bit of unrelated story, but like when I worked in aerospace, I worked for a smaller aerospace company for Ball,
Mhm.
and we're doing something for Boeing. It wasn't a project I was involved in, but Boeing didn't like some aspect of a design. And the guy I worked with told him, he's like, well, we've flown like 3 or 4 of these in space. We've never had an issue. It's been fine.
Yeah.
And Boeing guy was like, well, we've flown like 400 and we have seen it. So like,
Yeah.
if you do enough, like things, if there's a problem, like it'll eventually bite.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to happen eventually. So when it does happen, what do we do about it? And if you can
Yeah.
get it figured out ahead of time, then no problem.
And you're good. And then the other thing I forgot to ask you about too was, so you mentioned like you're buying notes in the US from Canada.
Yeah.
And I know other people are in other countries, like people in Israel that listen to this and other places. Like,
Yeah.
how hard is it, or what do people have to do if they're living outside the US, but they want to participate in the note market inside?
Yeah. For the most part, it's pretty much the same. There's a few hoops that I got to jump through, but all in all, it's not that big a deal. Um, Even more recently, just last year, I met a bank that would open a business account for Canadian businesses. There's banks out there that will open bank accounts for Canadian citizens as like personal accounts, but for business, that's really rare. Like, really, that's the
Mm-hmm.
first one I've ever met. So honestly, that just makes a huge difference, because then as the Canadian owned business, now I've got this US bank account, like simple thing like ACH. Now I can send payments through ACH with no problem, or receive payments. And just simple things like that that have just been game changer, like really easy things, but make a huge, huge difference to me.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. It's been really good though. Not anything major. I file a US tax return, and then after that, I file a Canadian tax return, and I pay the difference. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
I pay in the States is a credit to my Canadian. So it's not a huge issue, but there are, some hoops here and there.
Few extra things, but not too bad.
No, no,
Very
not so
cool. Well, that's probably a pretty good stopping point, Nathan. Well, thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. And
bad. Yeah,
yeah, hopefully see you in Nashville
yeah, absolutely. Sounds good.
in a couple months. All right. Thanks.